So, hello everyone, and thank you very much. Today I'm going to be in the most unusual quality for myself because for the past 20 years I have no problems speaking at the conferences about professional issues, theater, film, Russian culture, but never in my life I talked about myself in this capacity. So please forgive me if, I don't know, it's a very new stage employment for me. So,
thank you for doing it for us.
So, we are going to the journey of Masha from Soviet Russia. So I was thinking a lot about it and thinking where to start. So the first, I'm going to start that when I was little and not actually little, I kind of realized this huge gap, very important for the Soviet Union within myself. This gap was that my mother is Jewish, my father is Russian. So according to the Russian rules, Soviet rules, the nationality is determined by your father. According to the Jewish rules, the nationality is determined by your mother. So who am I? So, and it was a very important thing because the anti-Semitism was something that I really faced for the first time when I was, I think, 8. When my mom and I, we were at the taxi station, and suddenly I see my mom, and you have to understand that my mom had me when she was 21, so when I was 8, she was 30. And she was slim, and she was called Russian Audrey Hepburn because she really, it was a resemblance when she was young. So, but when I see my charming mother taking her purse and beating someone on the head in the line, so, well, she was called a kike, and that was her absolutely instant reaction. And now she was really well brought up, and she knows her manners, but there's something that, so she was with a child, she was called a kike, and that's the thing that I remember as if it were yesterday. My mother just stabbing someone on the head, slamming with her purse.
Where?
In Moscow,
Moscow.
in the middle of the downtown. We lived near the zoo, downtown Moscow. In fact, our house was next to the zoo. The zoo was Большая Грузинская 1. Our house was Большая Грузинская 3, the next one. And from the neighbors across it was the third story. And the neighbors, I looked to see the elephant in the zoo, who was also called Masha. So it was a kind of very charming. So it was downtown Moscow, very old district, and around probably 8 p.m. my mom was called a kike, so that was the first ever things that I realized. So here I wrote the play about it, and the play was called My Jewish Dreams, and we toured the play to the middle school students, and suddenly it was not about Judaism at all, but it was about this diversity. So the people who were from China, kids whose parents were from China and from Mexico, they responded to the, and indeed, so from India. So my daughter's friend, the son of the professor you all know, he suffered a lot because he was called Little Buddha at school. So my daughter was called a communist, although her great-grandfather was killed by Stalin in the prison camp. I'm going to talk about it. And so definitely she would be the last person to be called Stalinist and communist at school at the age of 15. So, however, about the diversity and the Judaism, so you see she did not face the issues with being and later I was called a kike in my face when I was 15 too. She did not face here these diversity issues, but they were here as well. What I wanted to tell you, and I think it's very much matching the topic, is that 2 days ago they had the local, Lima Senior had the school reunion for someone who graduated in 1962. So, and they were offered to have the banquet at the Shawnee Country Club. And they did not go. They denied the invitation. Why? Because in '62, the Jews and the blacks were not allowed in Shawnee Country Club. So in remembering the solidarity and the time at 1962, they declined. They had it elsewhere, which indeed is a very important memory. So going back to the split. So are you Jewish or are you Russian? When at the age of 16, every Russian, every Soviet Russian was until now carrying 2 passports. I do not know if you know about that. So one passport is domestic, one passport international for outside use. In the domestic passport, your nationality was the 7th paragraph, and it was called very often, so what's your 7th paragraph? In the old passport, it's removed for the, since, I think, since '92. So, but in the old passport, the paragraph 7th, it's something that you would be looked up first when you are applying for a job, for the university, and elsewhere. Sometimes the people who are in the committee, they even do not have to look into your passport. Not only they say that they recognize Jew by face in Russia, so right away. So for example, my stepdad, and it was 2004, in the subway with mom and myself, he said, well, Moisha, go back to Israel. It was 2004. He was almost 80. So, but the passport was important. Again, a very important part of the Soviet Russia. My ex-husband and the father, actually, of our child who brought me to Lima, Ohio, he needed to change his last name to enter the Moscow State University. So he was Sergei Weinstein from the birth. His father was the professional theater director for 50 years, Emil Weinstein. He was told openly that with the last name Weinstein, a boy with the golden medal who was actually allowed to enter without examination the Moscow State University, he was told he's not going to be accepted. So he took, after graduating from high school and before coming to Moscow to apply for the Moscow State University, he changed his name to his mother's last name, Task. So that's how the name Task became his name and our daughter's name. So she's also Daria Task. Otherwise, in general, she would have been Daria Weinstein. So, but she's Daria Task. And the name Task also, you will see it, is very symbolic for his mother and for Sergei, that was my ex-husband's name, for his grandfather, who was indeed killed in Stalinist prisons together with his grandmother. So we're going about this. So let's have the first slide. So because it's also very important, the slide is very important, I'm going to tell you about it. So because it continues the story with a split. So are you Jewish, are you Russian? So my family, since my Jewish side of the family, my mom divorced my father when I was 1.5 years. And so I was all the product of the Jewish side of my family. So they all came to Moscow from Vilnius, Lithuania, where Grandpa worked in the Lithuanian Drama Theater in 1956. So I'm the first generation of my Jewish side of the family to be born in Moscow. And again, as I was preparing for this presentation, I'm the first one to leave Moscow for the United States, because except Dasha and myself, everyone else is still in Moscow. My mother, my father, my aunt, uncles, cousins, everyone is. It's just my daughter and myself. So what is this picture? So the background, it's Moscow from 1956. So on this photograph, it is my aunt, who is in this, who just turned 70. And my grandmother, her cousin, and my great-grandmother, and I was named after her. So my great-grandmother is here. So I wanted you to look carefully at this man, who is the only man on this picture, because his name is Eugene Khaldei, and he is my grandmother's cousin, and he also lived in Moscow. And probably he's the only person from the extended family that the whole world knows. The only one. So, who is known to the whole world because of this. This is his picture. This is the picture of Yevgeny, or what we call him, Dядя Zhenya Khaldei, who was also Stalin's favorite photographer. And the picture that is known to any historian, yes, from all over the world. I have a book, the only book in English about Uncle Zhenya at home, but if anyone is interested, I'd be happy to show you this book. So going back, this is Uncle Zhenya and grandmother. So their fathers, my grandmother's father and his father, they were brothers. They were growing up together. So. And this continues the conversation about the split. So it's not only Jewish-Russian, although my family, they blocked the door when I said that at the age of 16 I'm going to militia to sign up as a Jew. Because I had a choice. I could also choose my father's nationality or my mother's. I didn't know my father. So I wanted to be a Jew, so they blocked the way. They said, no, 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 you're not going anywhere, because you are not going to have future if you sign yourself as a Jew. So, and so this is kind of the first duplicity in my life, not the last one. So, that I am this hidden Jew who pretends to be a Russian. So, this split is, as it says in the wonderful and immortal Godfather, who you're with. So who you're with? So the question is, in my family, so the Uncle Zhenya was Stalin's favorite photographer, and he has the personal photographs by Stalin, but he also photographed my grandfather and my grandmother and me. So, and that was, I didn't know that. And then my father, with whom we had reunion 10 years ago, he said, oh, this is Uncle Zhenya's picture. He took pictures of you from your childhood. I said, oh, cool. So someone who took pictures of Stalin took pictures of me too. So, but where is the split? The split until now is that my uncle on my father's side, who just died 3 days ago in Moscow, he is an absolute Stalinist. Absolute. My other uncle's sister, she's an absolute Stalinist. So, on the other hand, my favorite and beloved late stepfather, his father was killed during the repression period. And late, indeed, his name was restored. And indeed, my daughter's great-grandfather and great-grandmother were killed during the Stalinist purges. So here's the split again. You're either Russian or Jewish. You are either Stalinist or you are on the other, with the other crowd. You know, you are anti-Stalinist, but it's in the same family. This next and the most recent division, it's the Crimea, indeed. So 86% of the Russian were thinking that it was not an annexation in 2014. It was something that we have the right, we as Russians have the right. So my uncle, my favorite uncle, the one who actually brought me up and who knows me from before I was born, he called me, and he has double doctorate. He's about, I think, 25 of his papers are published on NASA. So he was in Houston. He was working with the cosmonauts when cosmonauts who were going to the space station. He called me and he said, "Congratulations." I said, "Okay, you too, what with?" He said, "Crimea is ours." Okay, so they are pro-Putin, they are pro-Crimea, they're my favorite uncle and aunt. What shall I do? The split. So my mom, they voted for Putin. My mom voted for Prokhorov against Putin. So all my friends are against Putin and against annexation of Crimea. And today, talking about how the split always will be in Russia, talking about today's news, one of the journalists of a very liberal, last of the two liberal programs in Russia, which is called Echo of Moscow, her throat was slit in the studio. Yes, she's after the surgery right now. She's recovering in the comatose condition, but it was slit actually by the man who heard all the propaganda about Echo of Moscow being the State Department of the United States, sponsored by, of the new enemy of the people who are against the Greater Russia. So it is reality. So it just happened today. She is in the hospital after the surgery today. Her condition is kind of very dangerous, but already stable. So, but that's the Russia today, the split again, the split in everything. So we are going to my father, my grandfather and grandmother. So actually grandmother looks here like she was an actress, but she was not. The actor, professional actor, was grandfather. So, and this is the Kharkov Drama Theater. Both were born in Ukraine. Both are Ukrainian Jews. So a lot of Jews were in Ukraine. So, and both of them, so grandfather, after studied in the theater studio, and he studied with great Stanislavski's student. So he was working in the Kharkov Russian Drama Theater, and he met my grandmother. And so they married in 3 days. It's kind of a very typical story for the Russians. They married in 3 days. They lived all their lives together. So I kind of also married in 1 week, my husband. So it's kind of a tradition. Sort of you madly fall in love. It's all very romantic. Then you marry right away because so. And so grandpa is one of the most essential men in my life because I didn't have a father figure, and he was the father figure. He was an actor. He introduced me to theater. He was very proud of me. And when I graduated from the after the first year of my theater studies, he took me to Vilnius, to Lithuania, to show the place where he worked as an actor for 10 years, where he got his kind of name that he was the honorable actor of the Republic of Lithuania. And so he was the one, by the way, who told me that I cannot be an actress. Martha Farmer, who knows the story, she said, "I cannot believe it, Masha, and you listened to him." And I said, "Of course I did." So because when I was 15, I was in the high school with both acting and theater criticism and theater literature, and I was in both sections. Then I decided to show to my grandfather to read the monologue. He saw me playing scenes, and he saw me doing sketches and everything. So when he said, you know, he said, "You can be a great comic actress if it is what you want." but you can never play Juliet. You can never play Gertrude. I said, Grandpa, why not? So because people would die of laughter. I said, okay. So I really believed him because, and plus also I always wanted to be the director more, and I was writing novels and short stories since I was 7, so, but just in case, and so again, it's the second profession I did not take, because the first one I did not take when I was 5. I was dancing a lot, and Grandpa invited from his friend, she was the ballerina of the Bolshoi Theater, to check me if every girl was dreaming about the ballet school in Moscow. Everyone. No wonder that, for example, Gorbachev, granddaughter, she went to the ballet school. It's the dream to be a ballerina, to work 12 hours a day near the bars. So it's great then to be in the chorus line or not be anything at all. So I was very slim, and I was dancing all the time. The ballerina, she weighed my leg. I was 5. And she said, sorry, your leg is heavier than it should be at the age of 5, so she cannot be ballerina. Well, country bones, you see, peasants' bones. So that's what, so my career of ballerina was gone, and my career of an actress also was terminated. So, so Grandpa also, who was born Abraham, and so he became Anatoly for stage, because so there are a lot of anti-Semites in the audience, and so he became Anatoly Yugov, and Grandma, so Zhenya, also called like her cousin Evgeny Khaldei. So, but neither she nor he were actually given the names that they were living under. So they both had Jewish names that they both changed for the same reasons. So this is Grandpa performing. So this little stand, he was in Stalingrad. He was in Stalingrad, and he was also had his diary in Stalingrad, and he was with the group of actors who were entertaining Russian troops. So, and he was telling me how it was, because sometimes they would go in the kind of this little place for like for underground where all the sewage was getting. So, and they would perform for 3 or 4 actors at a time there. Then another 3 or 4 actors also would go there. So he was entertaining soldiers in Stalingrad, and so he got his medals for that. And the only time he actually shot someone during the war, it was in Stalingrad. So, and he was also wounded in Stalingrad. So, and he had his diary, and his diary of Stalingrad events are still in the family. So this is him performing at the stadium, and he died in 1982. So that's where happening so to the first-born generation of Masha. So this is grandfather with me, indeed. And the second picture in a white beret, it's from Uncle Zhenya. So this is the one I'm so proud of, that the same man who, you know, take pictures of dictator took pictures of me too. This is the first grade with the flowers. And another kind of, if we want to understand what's happening in Russia today, we have to understand how we all were brainwashed when we were children. When at this age, actually in April 22nd, 1970, in the first grade, I was honored and selected in my class to read the poem. The poem I still remember. What was the poem? I want to meet Grandpa Lenin. I want to tell Grandpa Lenin, darling Grandpa Lenin, let's take hands and have a walk. So when the child at the age of 7 is honored to read the poem about Grandpa Lenin, so how many years it has to pass before this child will understand? Gosha, you're laughing. Why? Are you reading something the same?
For me, Lenin is such an uncle-like figure.
Exactly.
I love Lenin.
He was a dictator. He was a tyrant. He was the person who was no better than Stalin, if not worse, because after I read his decrees of killing everyone with the children, with the babies, just so. But if you are asked to read the poem about Grandpa Lenin and then you are getting a good grade for it, so how many years have to pass before you understand that actually it's like reading the poem about Hitler. I love my Uncle Hitler. So and that's where I think this also crack is coming. That's where we understand why just the past years there are, I think, about 20 monuments to Stalin in Russia. Come on, this person killed 20 million people. So why do you put monuments to Stalin? That's why also another fashion to put monuments to Ivan the Terrible. So there are 3 monuments to Ivan the Terrible that Stalin sampled as his kind of ideal. So that's why he asked the great Russian director Sergei Eisenstein to make a film about Ivan the Terrible. So that's great. We're killing people for the sake of greater good. What is this greater good? So this is, again, you see the picture with a hat, obviously not by Uncle Zhenya, obviously not. So you see the picture of Crimea. So that's why, again, the Crimea thing is so important for the Russians. Because every summer, just like clockwork, yes, every summer you are taken to Crimea, to the Black Sea, to have a monthly vacation there. So, and indeed, the children who would go there, of course, Crimea is ours. What are these Ukrainians have to do there? Yes, so Crimea. And to the point, and that no one was surprised. So many Russian citizens, they don't even understand the problem. So the problem is that they don't understand the problem. So, and that's in many things as well. The last picture you see is the last bell. And why it is interesting to see how this split between us and them is going through every single generation. So there is this person. So this is me. So, but this person, you see with this one, she is the vice prime minister of Putin. So Olga Golodets. So I do not know why she went to the theater school, because she later entered the Department of Economy of the Moscow State University, then got her PhD as economist. Well, I think it cannot be farther from each other than that on the one hand you have this, as they say, liberal nothing in the same class, because most of the crowd are the actors and journalists from this group. So in fact, this guy is a very well-known actor. This guy is kind of now the legendary actor. So this is my friend that we are still seeing each other, and we are friends, and every time I'm in London, I'm staying with her because she's teaching sociology at the London Metropolitan University. So, but among the actors and sociologists and professors and the journalists, there is one who is vice prime minister of Putin, who is the richest woman, one of the richest women in Russia. So interesting, isn't it? So let's keep going. So, and this is, this is the side that, the side of family that Dasha and my ex-husband Sergey, so this is his side. And it's again, it's very interesting how you see this crack in every family, in every single kind of unit in Russia. So this man that you see on the left, this is Yefrem Task. So he was the one who was the Menshevik, and he was the one who is who was a lawyer in Kiev, Ukraine, with absolutely huge, exquisite, one of the best apartments in Kiev. So where he lived with his wife and two daughters. Olga, the younger one, is Dasha's grandmother. So in 1937, they came for him. They arrested him and his wife. He was killed within the month in Kiev's prison as an enemy of the people. And she died in the psychiatric facility of the hospital because she just could not tolerate it. So two girls left by themselves. So Olga, Dasha's grandmother, she was 15. So at the age of 15, she left without a mother, without her mother, without her father, and she got libeled. So everyone at school where she was started to run away from her. They did not know her because she was enemy of the people's child. So it's the official title, the daughter of the enemy of the people. So however,
this is early 40s?
It's 1937, exactly. 1937, Olga is 15. So she was born in 1922. So for the absolutely happy childhood, she adored her father, and to the point that her father is an enemy of the people, her mother died, and she is an orphan except for her elder sister. So Olga, with the beginning of the war, she became, was trained as registered nurse, and she went to the front. So she was in the Second World War. She was a Second World War participant. So, so this is she. And what indeed incredible is, who is, I think Pam, is, you met Sergey. He looks very much like his grandfather if you remove the beard. So, and what is very interesting, that Dasha looks very much like her grandmother at the same age. It's, again, the genetics are incredible. So, and this is Olga and Emil Weinstein, and this is Dasha, and this is my mom, and we are all role-playing in Kaliningrad, which is former Königsberg, which was annexed after World War II by the Russians, and to get to which you have to go through now the foreign country Lithuania. So, and where unfortunately the grave of the great philosopher Immanuel Kant and his house, it's all in great deterioration. So Olga, by the way, the one who lived with us for 4 years here in Lima, she is a great, she gave me a few great comments on the cultural differences. When she came, in 3 or 4 days after she comes, she's yelling. She has a great professional voice and clear diction. So she's screaming. I was afraid that the whole street heard it. Masha, come here, come here. Sorry, quick. So, and I was running, and there was the procession of the cars that were kind of slowly strolling in front of our windows. And she said, "What country is this? Bangladesh?" I said, "Listen, there is a foreign delegation of Bangladesh in Lima. Or if not Bangladesh, it's something else. Well, it was the funeral procession. So the flag in Russia, it's red and black. So the color of the violet, you know, color, it's a strange color. So she saw this wonderful cars with flags. She did not know flag of what country is this. So, and these are what really cultural differences. But when you are coming from Russia, you do not know anything. For example, another sample for you. The first year we were in Lima, I was thinking, great, how many people are selling their basements? It's perfect, because I saw for sale, finished basement. So I was thinking, that's great. People are selling their basements. So you don't have to buy the house, but you can buy the basement and just move in. Great. It's absolutely typical for the Russian mind because of the communal flats that people lived in. And because until now, even now, you are selling one room in the apartment. So it's perfectly logical, yes? So if people are selling basements. So I have to tell you, we didn't have money to even bargain for the basement then. I probably would like to buy one, but so let's continue. So, and this is Dasha. So the Dasha, Sergey, and I think that in this picture also he looks like his grandfather. And so I think honestly that she's the one who brought us here. I'm not joking, because Sergey and we spent our honeymoon in Vermont. I came back to Moscow pregnant. She's made in America. So, absolutely so, and that's why I kind of always sure that it's her call, that she's calling us back. So unfortunately, it would have been much better if she were made in Russia but born in America. Not only because she would have gotten immediately her American citizenship, and otherwise she got it at the age of 17 in 2007. So we actually were in two minds because we did not know about Russian citizenship and all relatives and property in Russia and American citizenship. But Obama kind of solved it all, because we said we need to vote for Obama. We need to become citizens. So that's how we became citizens. And so Sergey, in '98, Sergey was back to Russia, and he's a very well-established, a very well-known translator. He has his theater agency in Moscow. So, and he said, girls, come back. Well, it was so difficult to adjust to not buying the basements in America. So, but that it was already too late, because the 6 years that Dasha and I lived here, and she in her mind was already an American, so she did not want to go. And for her, she loves her relatives. She loves going there. Her Russian is fluent, and so I had about 6 or 7 blisters on my forehead because of my making her speak her Russian. Her Russian is fluent. She writes, she reads. No accent except the jargon is mine, from my generation, so people are surprised why she's using the word that for 20 years people have not been using. So her father's and mine, and so we stayed. And the last one, it's so my father. New, kind of absolutely new page in my life, when once telephone rang in Moscow, and the voice said, "This is Maria Borisovna Ignatieva." I said, "Yes, hello, this is your father." I said, "Oops." How interesting. So he visited me until I was 6. Then for about 35 years, he was in Moscow. He doesn't have any children, but he was not kind of in the orbit, let's say. And at the age of, so at that late age, we met. And I found the whole wonderful history of my other side of the family. about the merchants from who lived not far. Originally, they came from Siberia. They lived in Moscow suburbs. They were merchants. They were professional weavers. So they weaved ropes. And so you cannot believe. So his grandfather had 9 sons, all the same name as mine. So his 9 sons had, so you understand that it's just about probably 300 or 400 Ignatievs who are there in Moscow that I do not know. So met just a few of them. So, we realized that we're very much alike. He came to Lima. He also came to visit his granddaughter, my daughter, in Baltimore. He got arrested at Johns Hopkins. So, because he was sitting there, he doesn't know a single word in English. He was sitting there while she was conducting her experiments on Saturday. So the guard came, asked what he's doing at Johns Hopkins, and he could not say. So he was arrested. They took him to the police station at Johns Hopkins. I have to tell you, within 10 minutes, they had a translator for him. So, and then Dasha came down from her lab, and she rescued. He was arrested again for the 2nd time in Detroit at the airport. And then, so police gave me his huge megaphone to actually say it in Russian to find him where he was, because he got lost. So, but we found him. So he was back to Russia. And this is my mom and my very kind of dear late stepfather. So mom came here. Actually, I invited her to one of my Russian culture class. Pam took pictures, wonderful pictures, and so she was telling our students what difference it is, and and that's about it. So now, you understand, I can talk for a long time. So, but I really want to know if there are any questions.
Well, how did you get from Russia to Lima, though? Did you finish your doctorate?
Yes, everything was finished in Russia, and I had a wonderful job, and I never wanted to leave Russia and leave Moscow. And for the first 3 or 4 years, I hated everything in America. I think partially it was absolutely everything, Tom. Yeah, partially it was a postpartum depression, I think, unrecognized. But
Where were you those 4 years?
so here, well, 1 year we lived in Vermont, but we were invited as honorable guests to work on the project. But in fact, we all were locked in a cabin in Vermont with no car, with no insurance, with nothing. So that was the first year. And we were sort of the private toys of one of the Vermont's millionaire.
Vermont what?
One of the Vermont's millionaire.
Millionaire?
Yeah, millionaire. So the wealthy man.
Millionaire. Oh,
Millionaire, yes. Yeah. So millionaire. So he invited us for a year to work on the project, but in fact he pretty much deceived us because we were not paid. We could not go anywhere. I did grocery once a week, and we were in the wonderful, beautiful cabin in the mountain for a year, where actually Joe Brandesky came to interview us both, and then he brought the idea to Violet Meek. And Violet Meek said, well, why not? And Sergei was invited as a playwright in residence here for 1 year, then for 2 years. That was it. It's still the same year for the past 24 years. So that's how it happened. And so if you want to blame someone, blame Joe. So it was his initiative. We are his adventure. So
You're the expert here, and I'm not trying to start anything with you, but I would like to put a little bit of context to the anti-Semitism.
yes,
Russia has always had this
Yes.
terrible tradition of anti-Semitism. It was getting worse and worse before the communists came in and somewhat attenuated it over the 20th century. I think you would agree.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
absolutely.
So, but you access to know that you can still get stopped in the street and get insulted.
Yes.
Are you saying that Gentiles play a game where they can see that you're a Jew by looking at you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
They don't have to see your name, or they just
No, yeah, they say that you are Jewish, yeah. And in fact, there is even a proverb, you hit Jew in the face, not in the passport. So everyone knows who you are, and you know,
But they
sometimes...
don't have to see that, you're saying?
Not any longer.
Yes.
Yeah, not any longer, but yes. So everyone knows who is Jewish. Everyone knows. And
Now, there are so many nationalities in Russia. Do you know, pure Russians play that game with other nationalities or just with Jews?
well, actually, right now the Jews are, to be a Jew is less dangerous than to be an Asian. To be an Asian, to be from Uzbekistan, from Tajikistan. So the recent wars are against them. The recent war are against the Asian population in Moscow that really flood Moscow after the perestroika. So, in fact, one of the Muslims' holidays, Moscow was closed because about 2 million people were in the streets. 2 million, so.
And the relatives who were killed in Stalin's camps, they were killed for political reasons, not because they were Jews.
No, they were killed for political reasons, but actually my stepdad's father was killed because he was suspected as part of the Jewish conspiracy against Stalin.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So he was the surgeon, the medical doctor in chief of one of the hospitals, and they just came after him, and that's what's happening. So, and I also read just again yesterday the question that people are asking: why don't you move somewhere? Why, if you know that you are going to be arrested, why don't you go? Why don't you move somewhere? And people were saying, because we were innocent. Why do we have to run if we were innocent? So it's said that everyone is even, that unlike in the terrible America, where they are still, you know, have discrimination, we in the Soviet Union do not have anything of this kind. That was one of the problems, that on the surface, the words were right, but the kind of shadow messages were just...
There's no impediment to joining the party. Jews can join the party.
Yeah, and many of them tried to join the party because of that reason, because it sort of excused them from being a Jew when you are the member of the Communist Party.
Give them some protection.
Yes, gives them, exactly, give them some protection. That's correct. Yes?
We know why you and Dasha got citizenship because of Poland the vote, but what made you and Dasha embrace living here? What made you want to stay?
So how much time do we have for me to answer your question? You know, it's a very good question because I sort of, I was whining for 3 or 4 years that I hated here. But the thing is that I kept working and I kept moving. So the question is, if you hate it so much, why didn't you pack up your suitcases and go back? Not that you are indecisive of a kind, yes. So, because there was something that indeed was happening here, which was, from my point of view, made more sense and was much better and gave more opportunities to Dasha and to myself. It's very interesting. The source, the spy in our family was my grandmother, because she's the only one from the family who was listening every night to the forbidden Voice of America. So, and she was the one who was telling us the news. She was the only one who knew. So her last letter, when we were in Vermont to me, she was begging me to stay in America. She said, please, we're going to miss you. We're going to be heartbroken but stay in America. Do everything you can. So because she knew what the country is. And just like I knew from 1999, when the national anthem was switched back to the Stalinist anthem, that everything is going to be reversed in Russia, everything. So she knew too. So, and definitely it's a cliche, but it is the land of opportunities. Definitely teaching at the prestigious Moscow Theater School studio, I understand that our students need me more than they who are spoiled, who live in Moscow, who know it all, who see theater every day. So, and kind of this feeling that here I could be more appreciated than in Russia, that I think that what kept me here. And for Dasha, it's just her country. That's where she grew up. And she doesn't want to go back to Russia, ever. So, well, she goes every year, but to visit with relatives. Any personal questions? I'll answer them. Thank you.